Well, hello and welcome to our first ever Smarter Selling webinar. We're your hosts. I'm Scott Winterton.
And I am Ryan Patton.
And we are excited to share with you our tips for effective discovery. Now, we've designed these webinars to be concise and informative. So you're going to find that we've packed a lot of information into these next 30 minutes. And because of the brief format, please don't hesitate to ask any questions along the way in chat. We're going to keep monitoring that, responding along the way. And always, if you have any questions, even after the event, feel free to email us at webinars@kahoy.com. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Ryan. He's going to talk really quickly about the special thank you gift that we have prepared for you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. So we have provided a special thank you gift for our attendees today, Kahoy's Discovery Planning Guidebook. Now, in the guidebook, you're going to find some great practical tips, approaches, and advice to create meaningful experiences for your customers at all levels of the organization. So, Scott, I'll turn it back over to you to walk through our agenda.
Great. So as we begin, let's start with a point of view. So you've just been invited to the trendiest new restaurant in town, and your server puts this plate in front of you. So what's your first thought? Feel free to put some of those thoughts in chat. And while we wait for some of those, Ryan, what's your first thought?
I guess my POV would be we're not leaving this restaurant without spending at least $100 a person. And I'm probably going to grab a cheeseburger on my way home.
Well, there's no shame in that, Ryan. I'm sure we've all done the post-dinner drive-through of shame at least once or twice in our time. And you just got a +1 for your burger in the chat. So I guess primarily that dish is carrots and is that a radish? Not sure.
I have no idea, but I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way.
Okay. So how does this picture then apply to discovery? So like the meal that Ryan just described, sometimes our discovery sessions are like one of those meals where you ate, but you didn't really feel fed. And sometimes we'll go through an entire discovery session, but we don't really feel like we or the customer got very much out of it. So for today's presentation, we're going to serve you 3 courses of information. A quick amuse-bouche, 10 tips for effective discovery. Now, these are included in your discovery guidebook, so we're not going to spend too much time there. And next, we're going to talk about the AIM methodology and specifically how the AIM methodology helps you to target your discovery based on your audience members' authority, their influence, and their level of motivation. And then Ryan's going to follow up with directional questioning and how directional questioning will help you to uncover your customer strategies, consider the tactical implications of those strategies, identify challenges, and then ultimately find a path to value for your customer.
So, we're not going to go through all 10 tips. You can find those again in the Discovery Planning Guidebook, but I want to touch on just a few of them that are really relevant to today's conversation. So the first one is you got to do your homework. So this means researching the company and the people that you're going to talk to so that you can plan in advance how you're going to approach the call. Next, keep it simple. So as part of your plan for your questions, don't do multi-part questions. Your customer probably is going to be like me, and they're going to miss part of the question. And then last but not least, remember that discovery is always, always for your customer. So don't let them feel like they ate but didn't get fed. And be sure to take a look at the Discovery Planning Guidebook on more detail for each of these steps. But now we're going to move on to our next course as Scott walks us through the AIM methodology and how it helps you develop a solid game plan and maintain customer focus.
Great. So Ryan, in our time working together, both as strategic enablement leaders at Oracle and now at Kahoy, how many deals do you think we've worked on together?
I would say probably about 50.
Sounds about right. So out of those, how many times have you heard the rep tell you, you know what, Ryan, this one's going to be a layup because I play golf with the CMO, or my neighbor is the CFO, or something like that?
Too many to count. There's a lot of golfers out there is what I figured out.
Yeah, sales reps do like their golf. So Out of all of the ones where they've said that, how often do you think you actually seen the rep win the deal?
Well, you'd think that expensive round of golf and being friends with somebody would win you a lot of opportunities, but it's not as much as you'd think. I mean, more often than not, I would say, and they won't say they lost, but the reality is that the deal didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, incidentally, I was just reading about this shift from relationship selling, which is the golf, to issue selling. And so the rep finds this relationship somewhere in the account and they nurture that relationship impeccably. And they may even build an ROI model for the customer because we're all being told to do that as sellers, but they never find a champion with real issues who can advance their business case. And we've built the AIM methodology to specifically address that problem. So the AIM methodology is designed to fit over any existing sales process. And ultimately, it's designed to help you accomplish three goals. First, to identify your customers' change agents, to win over influencers, and then ultimately to resonate with the authority figures in the account. And each of those three goals align with the three components of AIM: authority, influence, and motivation.
And I'll just mention, Scott, in your discovery planning guidebook, we have provided a list of starter questions for each of the three authority levels within the AIM framework. So the executives, those line of business leaders, as well as those departmental leaders and frontline employees. Now, the other thing I'll mention is we have found that top sellers align their discovery with their customers' personas, their priorities, and their goals that they're trying to support within the call. So your managers and your end users, when you think about them, they're typically going to respond to tactical benefits, your solution. Your line of business leaders are going to be interested in tangible, measurable results. And then finally, your executives, of course, they want to see that big picture vision. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into directional questioning.
Yeah, all good points. Thanks, Ryan. So the goal behind authority is all about strategic alignment. And so while strategic alignment is critical, sellers also need to understand who your influencers are in the organization and how they're going to impact the sale. So especially when we consider the importance of multi-threading, with the average sales cycle consisting of 7 B2B buyers, understanding how to use influence to your advantage is key. So within the AIM framework, we've identified 6 influence types. And so the influence types are process ownership, political capital, access to resources, data and information, knowledge capital, and then ultimately tenure and position. And of course, we describe each of those in greater detail in your discovery planning guidebook. Now, we recommend to our clients that you rank each of your contacts across each of those areas of influence and then set your discovery strategy and your sales approach based on each contact's dominant influence type, as well as their overall level of influence. So let's say, for example, that you're selling incentive comp software and you've identified 3 influencers in your organization. So you've got Marissa, Brian, and Derek. And so then being in sales operations, Marissa strongly influences the process itself. So she has a very deep knowledge of the process and the data that's ultimately going to be involved in incentive compensation. Now, Brian, as the VP of sales, is the primary beneficiary. And so, as is the case in most B2B companies, Brian holds a lot of influence and he's very well connected in the organization. And then, of course, we have Derek, our executive buyer, and we always want to resonate with the executive buyer. So as you engage with your buying committee, we recommend using your entire support team to triangulate against that committee. So for example, you might want your pre-sales team to focus on Marissa, while as a sales rep, you might focus on Brian in hopes of finding your champion. And then finally, you want to align your executives with Derek because he is that high tenured, high position influencer. So if you align influence with the traditional sales process, each influence type is critical to a specific stage of the process. So early in discovery, we're very highly focused on analyzing capabilities and finding gaps in the capabilities around a given process. And so you might want to direct your discovery toward your process owners and towards your data and information owners. And then as you begin to align your solution with the specific needs of the organization, you're going to want to establish that functional win. So you need to win over your experts and your influencers who are ultimately going to act as the champion before the selection committee. And then finally, as you present your business case, you want to win over the executives and you want to win over the economic buyers. So we touched on authority. That is ensuring that we resonate with our buyers at the department, the line of business, and the executive levels, as well as influence and how we're going to map all of that. The last piece of AIM is motivation. And so the goal here is to find your change agents within the organization, your stakeholders that have a vision for the ideal future state of the company. Now, in order to do this, you need to consider two perspectives. Your top-down perspective, which is executive strategy down to the capabilities that ultimately support it, and then your bottom-up perspective. Your bottom-up perspective is the capabilities and how they impact strategy. And so then, as you consider those two perspectives, you're going to want to consider the goals and the challenges that each stakeholder in your influence map faces from each perspective. And to do this, you need a discovery technique that uncovers strategy, that considers the tactical implication, that identifies challenges and finds a path to value for the customer. And that's where directional questioning comes in.
All right. So be honest, Scott. Have you ever been to a party and introduced yourself to somebody new and you had a great conversation with them? Maybe you talked to them for 10 to 15 minutes. And as you walked away, you realized that you couldn't remember their name?
You know, I would be lying if I said that it hasn't happened to me at least a couple of times, fella.
There it is. So you just did it. Thank you. I don't know if you've ever done it during discovery. I'm not going to have you tell me, but I'll be honest with you. I've done it during discovery where I had a great conversation with the customer, asked a lot of really good questions, but walking away from the discovery, I didn't really remember what they told me. And I really only captured like half of the critically important information because I was so busy trying to figure out what my next question was going to be. And this is where directional questioning can come in and give you an easy way to navigate through the conversation without focusing too much on what your next line of questions is going to be. And the concept is actually quite simple. There's 4 different directions that you can traverse with your questions. So your down questions, those are your tactical questions. Your up questions are going to be strategic questions that give you a strategic understanding of the problem. And then moving left or right allow you to understand emotional motivation. As you're moving to the left, those are going to be the questions that focus on the negative or the pain. And moving right, those are the questions that focus on the positive or the gain. Now, as you think about the questions and what those questions might be, some examples, if you're going down and you're getting tactical, oftentimes these are questions that are going to start with what specifically. If you're going left, you're going to ask questions like, well, what happens if you don't take action immediately, or if you do nothing to solve the problem, or what else is contributing to the issue? As you're moving right and focused on the gain, you're really trying to get an understanding of what those positive outcomes are associated with solving the issue. And the other thing that you can find out here is who else could benefit from the outcome. So you're going to find out some of the additional key stakeholders that might be part of the project. And then as you're going up, that helps you really understand the strategic impact of the problem. So, think about how does this align to your organization's goals, or what strategies and measurable outcomes do you have set to meet those goals? Those are some examples of ways that you can get a better understanding of what the overall impact is going to be to the brand, their goals, and ultimately kind of their strategies.
Yeah. So Ryan, we have a question in chat. It says, is there a best recommended approach to which direction you should go in parentheses, it says up, down, left, right, up.
Sure. Yeah, and I've actually heard that question before. I think I understand, what they're asking is there like a magic formula that you can go, it's like left, right, up, down, and it's going to help you win every deal. And the reality is it's not like playing a Nintendo video game where there's a secret cheat code. Really what's important is that active listening piece, understanding and confirming what the customer said, and then using that information to take a natural progression as to what's the next line of questioning that you want to take. And then the other thing I'll say is that it's really also about thinking about who you're talking to. And we talked a little bit earlier about top sellers really aligning their discovery questions with their customer's persona, that persona's priorities and the goals that they have. And as we think about, for example, our managers and end users, that department level, here you're going to want to focus oftentimes on those tactical questions. So remember Marissa from our sales compensation example, she was from operations. She's going to have some great some great answers to those tactical questions. But if we try to go up with her and ask some of those strategic questions, she's probably not going to know the answer. And vice versa, if we ask Derek some really tactical questions, more than likely as the executive, he's going to push us down to lower levels because he wants to spend that time being more strategic. Now, as you're moving left and right, this can be very beneficial in helping you understand who else might be impacted by the project or who else might be experiencing pain. And what that's going to do is that's going to help you do that multi-threading through the organization and help your champion even find additional champions within the organization that might benefit from the change. And ultimately, this is going to help you as well as your champion increase the likelihood of their project getting funded over other competing projects. So next time you're looking to simplify your discovery process, make sure that you take aim, authority, influence, and motivation, and use the right directional questions to align to your key stakeholders and what's most important to them.
Excellent. So over the course of this session, we've covered tips and approaches that you can use to turn your next discovery session into an opportunity to create mutual customer value. So no more leaving our customers feeling like they ate but didn't get fed. And at Kahoy, our focus is on providing sellers with techniques, with tools, with tips they need to create those memorable customer experiences for their customer every time throughout your engagement cycle. And we do that by providing 3 services. And so our best practice consulting service is where we help you to be more prepared, more better equipped to make your next discovery session or your next presentation more effective. And then we also have our conversation starters. And our conversation starters are where we help sellers to capture their customers' attention with a strategic, value-based point of view, value-based messaging, and a customer-centric branded presentation template. And then finally, our experience as a service offering is our full service offering. And with experience as a service, we combine all of the elements of both of the 2 bullet points before that. We combine strategic messaging, we combine creative design, and ultimately our goal is to craft unforgettable experiences for your presentation to really win over those high priority must-win engagements for your customer.
And, as Scott mentioned, we do have the best practice consulting. We talked a lot about discovery today. You'll see the discovery planning guidebook as well. And, as we think about what's included with that discovery prep, we can put together customer-centric profiles for you. We also provide guidance on which discovery questions and leveraging that AIM methodology, along with putting together those actual directional questions that you should be asking to be able to put together a really compelling POV. So as it pertains to POVs, that's going to be our next webinar. So join us in June for our next Smarter Selling webinar, Creating Compelling POVs. Really excited to have you all here today. Glad you could join us. I had a ton of fun, Scott. It was a pleasure sharing the mic with you, and we look forward to seeing you in June. Thanks a lot.